Destroy my childhood, ruin my chance at college, and laugh when I said I was homeless? LOL cool, I'll ruin your effing life. Trigger warning, child abuse. Backstory, my mother was a really shitty person. I have 4 other siblings. 1 older sister, 3 way younger, 3 different dads. Before I was born, I'm a male BTW. My oldest sister was taken away from my mother when she was a few months old, because she tried to stab/slice the father of my sister while he was holding her. She lost custody and the dude left her. Older sister goes to live with her father's family in a different city. Q lil ol me coming into this sexy world. My dad went to jail 2 to 3 years after I was born for a while. I rarely saw him. He's an alcoholic if that matters. She was a single mother but she made it work and she worked hard. One of the bigger problems was that she took out all her aggression and hatred of my father on me as well as work stress and etc. She dealt with sexual abuse growing up which I'm sure definitely affected her relationships. And how she treated me as well. Cue me being abused from the age of 4 to 5 to about 17. Every day was hell. She was extremely strict and her perspective was warped. She was also pretty big in stature and had a lot of strength. Examples of her being shitty, I've gotten beaten up badly once because her room was dirty. The dishes weren't washed and I got beaten soon as I got home, even if there weren't dishes when I left to school. If I walked too loud, I'd get my ass beat. She broke my nose for looking at her the wrong way. On my 10th birthday when she brought me a cake I was allergic to, it had peanuts. She knows I'm slightly allergic but feigned ignorance. It was more or less every day or every other day. She used her fists, elbows, extension, cords, hangers, chairs, canes, bats, etc. Whatever she could find I was getting beaten with. I couldn't ever escape to my room for long. Because she would always call me every few minutes to get her things or to yell at me. She never drank or did drugs or anything. Whenever she was upset and I happened to be in front of her she'd kick me down the stairs to make me hurry up. She's put a knife to my neck before and had to be forcibly stopped by her BF of the time. Burned my Christmas presents from other people. She didn't get me anything that year, and just other really shitty things. The only thing I will say, she tried really hard to make up for it with video games and electronics and etc. It didn't make a difference to me though, it never helped. She controlled most aspects of my life. I got by with little petty revenges. Peeing in the Lipton iced tea she drank. Rubbing her forks and spoons between New York butt cheeks before I served her dinner. Ignoring her screams for help when she had kidney stones. How TF am I supposed to help anyways? But by the time I got to high school I turned to alcohol. I resented her and the negative atmosphere affected who I was as a person. I started to be cold and uncaring. Calculated. She started kicking me out every few months, telling me to find somewhere else to live by age 15. She sent me away to a different country for a year, and tried to keep my passport, but I made it back to the US with the help of the embassy, and my stepfather. She'd already left by that time and found some other dude. I came back senior year with no credits for the prior grade, which ended with me getting a GED. I spent most of the time I could with my BFF and started working shitty jobs. I was terrible at saving as I had accumulated loads of shitty habits while growing up, so it didn't make much difference. She eventually told me that if I went to college, would always have a place to live until I finished. My first 2 semesters at a 2-year college, I maintained a 3.7 GPA. My teachers loved me and it was my escape. Towards the end of my 2nd semester during final, I came home late one night around 10 p.m., and my mother yanks the door open screaming in my face asking when I'll move out. I'm slightly drunk and decide to completely ignore her and walk to my room. If I opened my mouth, that day would be the day I blew up and cursed her out. I've rarely ever raised my voice at her because it never ended well. Now at this point I'm 19 and I've been doing school full-time with no savings. I'm also fairly fit and could easily take my mom at this point, never laid a hand on her or any woman. I hate violence. I get to my room, she rips my door open and starts yelling. I say nothing and stare at her. She walks away and called the police on me saying she thought I'd M_rider her and my younger siblings. I don't know where the F she got that idea from, as she's the one who's nearly K_led me many times. I packed everything into a duffel bag and left 5 minutes afterwards. I failed all of my finals because I couldn't make it to my school. Things kinda spiraled and the next 2 to 3 years were me on and off homeless. I survived the best I could in a big city with no college degree, and made a lot of shitty choices due to my shitty habits. Eventually I found a profitable hobby that gave me meaning, and through that I started to work my way up. Got my own apartment, had a full-time job, and did my hobby on the side. I hadn't kept up contact with my mother at all, but my younger sister who was old enough to have a phone found me on social media, so I saw photos and such. She didn't have it anywhere near as bad, but she did get beaten occasionally. My mother reached out via email, all smiles, asking how I've been. Now guys, I've always been envious of the relationship most people have with their moms, so I gave her a chance and gave her a call. We talked for a few minutes and everything was civil, and seemed like things would go okay, but then, she asked me what I've been up to the last few years, and I told her honestly that I was homeless for a while and struggled a lot after what she did to me, but I worked my way out of it. She literally laughs. She laughed for a few seconds in a very condescending kinda chuckle and then said, "I never did a thing to you, so you don't know what abuse is. It's your own damn fault you were homeless, so how about yo?" But by that point I hung up. I was speechless and fuming. I don't know what abuse is. Okay B. I've spent too long letting you destroy my sanity. Now is the time. There was a few things my mother didn't know. 1. I knew for a fact that current well-paying job she had was gotten on lies, as she never got her college degree, and lied about it on her resume. 2. I had access to all of her email accounts and cloud storage accounts, since I was the one that set them up when I was younger, and she never changes her passwords. Lastly, she definitely wasn't aware that from 13 years old, and on to the last time she hit me, I took photos of all my bruises / marks / wounds / bloody noses, saving them to my computer and then Google Drive. On top of that, my little sister had been sending me photos via social media of the bruises she got from my mom. The first thing I did was compile all of those photos / videos into one folder. I then reached out to CPS in my city and explained that my siblings were being abused, how I was abused in the past, and that I had mountains of proof. Since Eve called the cops on my mother before, and the thing that happened with my older sister, there was immediately a home visit. They arrived almost a day later with the police, and coincidentally my mother was literally in the process of beating my younger sister when they were knocking. Cue an emergency removal of all my siblings from the house, and my mother getting arrested, though she was released hours later. I was getting a day-to-day play-by-play because my mother's best friend is a blabbermouth. And everything my mother said she told her son, who relayed it to me without either of their knowledge. I sent CPS all the evidence, and there's a legit case against my mother now. The next day I emailed and then called up her job to inform them that she had lied about having a very necessary college degree, as well current events in her life, which sparked a background check. She was fired days later. Say adios to $75K and a blacklist in the only industry you know how to work. I then spitefully deleted every cloud account and email address I ever made for her, which was all of them, which I'm sure will make keeping up with a lot bills and etc. nearly impossible. I then anonymously reported her to the IRS because of the tax fraud she committed for years by claiming people's children that weren't hers with a lot of detailed information, since I lived with her while she did it. So now, my mother lost all her kids and her job. I'm meeting with a caseworker from CPS next week to talk more about what happens moving forward, but I do know they're not going back. How she's gonna pay her mortgage now and survive. I'm sure she's gonna get a call from the IRS who'll be looking for a few $1,000s she owes them. She also has to go back to court in a few months, not exactly sure what she was charged with, but I'll update when I find out how everything turns out. Side note, she isn't aware I'm the cause of any of this. I plan on keeping tabs on her and waiting until it seems like she's close to death before I tell her it was all me and I peed in her Lipton. 1. I am psychologically not in the position to take care of my younger siblings or take on a parental role. I came very close to suicide 2 years ago, and I'm just trying to work on my alcohol problem and other habits that keep me in a cycle of instability. No, I haven't been to any programs or therapy. I don't think it will help me in regards to my nearly constant apathy and etc. 2. My 2 youngest siblings weren't really bothered much. It was mostly my little sister after I left who got beatings. Luckily it wasn't anything near the level I had to deal with. 3. I'm also incapable of taking custody because I don't have an apartment anymore due to bad decisions I made while drinking recently. So I'm back to homeless, but I crash with a friend once in a while. I am very well aware I am an influence on my younger siblings, and I'm trying to stay consistent with doing everything I can to be a better and more stable person for them, so that maybe I can finally build a real relationship with someone in my family. I'm sorry to disappoint everyone who keeps wishing me more success. 6. Aside from my little siblings, I have zero contact with anyone else in my family. And even then, it's been very rare because I had to avoid my mother to see them and didn't want her knowing I kept in contact, meeting my little sister after school, FaceTime, etc. The rest of my family were well aware of what she did and distanced themselves. I don't plan on reaching out to them as I'm not good at maintaining relationships with mostly anyone anyways. For those concerned, my 3 siblings are currently being housed together and I made it very clear, I will do anything to make sure they aren't separated, but I know that anything can happen. I stay in constant contact and they are all doing well. Lastly, I have read the hundreds of comments for me to look into therapy and AA. As well as people hinting that I may be depressed. I don't really know what my next step is in regards to that. I don't like to think about my feelings too much, but I do know I need to stop drinking. It doesn't help at all. Edit 3. I've been getting a very large amount of hateful and angry messages on Reddit and on my Instagram photography page from people who either think I'm a terrible person or think I'm over-exaggerating. It's not my job to convince you, I only came to tell you my story. Update. I'll give an update on me personally first. My camera was stolen and instead of trying to get another one, I decided to take a break from photography. I appreciate all of the support you guys gave me after my first post. It's been extremely hard. Taking pictures was the only thing I really did that helped me feel okay, but I'm learning to build resilience. In the meantime, I swallowed my pride and moved into a homeless shelter, in my city specifically for people with jobs and a savings. I'll be able to continue saving while I work on bettering myself as a person. I created an action plan and mapped out all my goals and how I want to achieve them. Up until recently, I wasn't even planning on being alive. Sorry if that's too dark. I honestly always had these thoughts wishing my mother would have finished the job with me and made life easier. But as of late, I'm becoming more and more curious of what I'm capable of if I gave myself the chance. I've been able to visit my younger siblings and have gotten to know my little sister a bit better because of the experience. I feel like a horrible person for admitting I still feel nothing for them or really anyone, but I won't let my feelings get in the way of the promise I made to myself or them. I've also only drank 3 times in the last 4 months compared to every other day in the past, which isn't great but it's a change. My younger siblings are still with CPS but I can't go into detail. My mother was supposed to go to a hearing to get them back, but things got complicated. My mother's best friend's son, who I've known 8 years, does his best to relay all the shit my mother tells her while they talk on the phone all day. Things had gotten worse for her. She hasn't been keeping up with her mortgage payments. Her fiancé, my youngest sibling's dad, is no longer her fiancé anymore and is trying to file for custody. I heard she was a wreck then went ghost, but it didn't make me feel better. There weren't supposed to be any winners. Honestly, I wasn't even going to update. I initially just wanted to tell someone for once, but one thing changed my mind. Something I was not expecting months after I set this all in motion. A phone call from my mother. In the past, seeing her calls, even after moving out, would set me on edge, but that hasn't been the case lately. It was just another thing that happened. Just another event. Meaningless, but at the same time. She always had my number but never reached out. Even when things first started going to shit, I doubt she even gave me a second thought. But I'm sure you're all curious to know what was said. My mother is gone. A few weeks after my post, the state I'm in brought felony charges up against her. She left the country shortly after and went to her home country in South America. I have no idea how she was even allowed to leave, but they didn't take her passport. She avoided specifics on that part. She mentioned staying with a family friend temporarily and tried to frame it as a short vacation. She didn't even start off with a hello, she started the conversation by ordering me to go somewhere quiet, before launching into a sob story about how things have been going for her. This is after months of no contact. After laughing at me for being homeless and denying she ever abused me months ago. Just yammering away like it was nothing, but I let her talk. It was surreal, I felt so cold just listening to her talk. It was like talking to a stranger. She mentions losing out on so much money. And how she doesn't know how all it happened, and then finally she hits the topic du jour. Cue her bringing up my little sister and the night of the emergency removal. She starts complaining about how she misses my little sister and brothers, mentions something about how it messes up tax season, and then she had the audacity to start trying to convince me that I should go talk to the caseworkers for her to back up her claim, that she never abused them or me and I should know that. She said that to me. After everything. Of all people. 9 minutes into the conversation. Like nothing ever happened. But it wasn't anything new. Of course I cut her off, but at that point my mind was already made up. I asked her if she remembered when I used to make iced tea for her all those years. She was a little thrown off but said yes. I paused for a few seconds before slowly telling her in detail about all the ways I sabotaged her Lipton iced tea. She tried to interrupt me once, but I didn't stop talking. I told her about how I'd always put too much sugar, and she'd never taste it and keep drinking more, which was why I always insisted. There was just silence on the phone, but I know she was listening. She finally loudly interrupts me, screaming at me disgusting evil things. She cursed me the way she used to back in the days when she'd be standing over me with an extension cord, beating the skin off of me when I was younger. She's blaming me for ruining her life and how she wished she had a better child. All without knowing that I directly caused the destruction of her current life, though she's speaking about the past. I just let her waste her breath. She couldn't touch me or my siblings. It only lasted a few seconds. Now I remember spending years daydreaming of all things I'd say to my mother, if I had the chance, but I just bottled it up with all my other baggage, and kept trying to exist. A lot of people from my original post also gave me some ideas. When she finally shut her mouth, I calmly told her, "Look, Mom. You don't know what abuse is, and honestly it's your own effing fault this is all happening to you. Also, my bad for pissing in your iced tea." Then I just hung up the phone and blocked her number. That was the last day I drank. I haven't talked to her since. I'm not sure she's aware, or maybe she is, how bad of an idea it was, to leave the country with all this going down, even if it was for a few weeks. At this point I'm done with her. I don't want an apology. I just want to move forward and be a better person. I know that's hard to believe after everything I just told you, but it's the truth. I try my best to put as much positivity into the world and share it with the people around me as much as possible. I don't know if she knows it was me, but I didn't tell her. I'm sure she can guess though if she really tried. That's my revenge. It's still actively fucking her life up, but I'm not taking any active part in it. I wish it wasn't like this. I wish I had a real family that loved me and I knew how to love back the right way. I wish I had a real relationship with my mother and none of those things happened. I wish I could have turned out like one of the happy people in the world, but I can spend all day wishing. Sorry for the super long post. This is my last update. Wish me luck next year. 1. I have a job. I'm working on getting a second one while maximizing my income. The shelter I live in is very clean and the staff are nice. It's obviously not ideal, but it took a lot for me to come here. 2. Photography isn't a hobby. It's the most important thing to me and I plan on pursuing it professionally when I'm in a better place. I spent the last few years working hard to get better, thinking it equated to me being happy. The problem was, I wasn't doing my best at it or anything I did in life, even though I was getting better and better at photography. After my camera was stolen, I realized I still had a lot of the same problems I had before I was at the level I'm at now. I realized I couldn't withdraw from life and only focus on that. So, now I'm just working on giving my future self the ammo I need to make my dreams a reality. For people curious about my photos, my Instagram is @larapodderks. 3. I'm sure people will disagree, but I don't think I need therapy. I don't feel depressed. I feel nothing most of the time and I'd rather that. It makes this all easy to deal with as I can just detach. 4. For all the people who offering to help me out or asking me about a GoFundMe, I don't how I feel about accepting help. I'm used to trying to do things on my own, not sure if that's a bad perspective to have. I never really had people offering to help me this way before, so it's weird. 5. The police 100% know about my phone call and my mother leaving the country. After my phone call with my mother, I alerted them and CPS just in case.